Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. I'm Craig Lance.
I'm Sean, bearded Capolitan.
So, Sean, let's get right to it this week. We're going to be discussing Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to be discussing this movie in depth. There's no way we can do that without spoiling it. So if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want to be spoiled, now is your one and only chance to pause this episode, go watch the movie, and then come back and finish listening to our breakdown because, we're really intelligent and you want to know what we have to say.
Absolutely.
So, as mentioned, this is subtitled Jason Lives. It was released in 1986. It was written and directed by Tim McLaughlin. It's starring Tom Matthews as now the third person cast as Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think that you know that name or recognize that face, you probably have if you watch horror movies. Tom has become a bit of a horror movie icon. In 1985, he starred in Return of the Living Dead, and later returned to that franchise in Return of the Living Dead Part 2 as a completely different character.
Yeah.
And has recently returned to his role as Tommy Jarvis. Did you know this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I think I texted you a little while back about a series of shorts called Never Hike Alone,
Oh,
which are
okay.
some
Yeah.
fan-made films about Friday the 13th. And he plays Tommy Jarvis in those roles. So at some point, we may have to review those films as well.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe do them all together as one if we can find them
Right.
to watch them. Then it also stars Jennifer Cook as Megan. Jennifer had just finished up her run on the TV series V. Did you ever watch that series, Sean?
Random episodes here and there on TV.
Okay.
I didn't really get into it too deep.
Yeah, I loved that series as a kid. I'm sure it kind of doesn't hold up real well by today's standards. There's a lot of themes in it that would play well, especially with what happened this week at the Capitol building. But
Right.
yeah, it's a pretty decent sci-fi alien invasion show about fascism.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty decent. And then David Kagan as Sheriff Garris, also Megan's father. And for the first time in the role of Jason, and probably his only time, because I think Kane Hodder was the only one to play more than once, right?
That's right.
Yeah, C.J. Graham plays Jason this time.
And actually, this is another one of those that has two people playing Jason, although one for only one scene. And
Oh, does it?
I'll get more into it later.
Okay.
But a man named Dan Bradley actually played him in just the paintball scene. I'll get into why a little bit.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now the movie isn't really clear about how far beyond the last movie it is, but I think you told me in a conversation that it was, 5 years past the last movie?
Yes, I believe because the last one was around what 85.
Yes.
And because they always take place, most of them I believe all take place in the current time that they're being filmed. This one is actually taking place in 1990, so it is like
Okay.
4 or 5 years since part four. Actually, yeah,
Yeah, since the last
yeah,
movie. Yeah, so Tommy is now a few years older. Um, no longer wears his glasses. He has a new look. Um, almost like a different person. He has put aside his psychotic tendencies as shown at the end of the last two movies.
right,
They just kind of dropped that whole thing where he put on the mask and had a knife, um, and just kind of let it go.
right,
He's decided that in order to get past all of his issues with Jason, the best thing to do is to go dig up Jason's body and finish the job by cremating the remains. Doesn't sound like a horrible plan to me.
right.
Um, Along with his friend Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter, I mean Alan, they dig up Jason. Once seeing Jason's decomposing remains, Tommy loses it and forgets the plan. He decides to stake Jason with a metal fence post. And as soon as he does that, because Friday the 13th, it starts raining and thundering,
Right.
and lightning hits the metal rod, in what is a very Frankenstein like moment, and brings Jason back to life. Jason climbs out of the grave, kills Alan. Tommy escapes, and then we get some very great James Bond type opening credits.
Yeah, we do. I included a small GIF of that in the visuals that y'all are seeing during this, where it doesn't show the full walk, but yeah, it's him walking into frame, and then instead of shooting a gun, slicing a good old machete.
Yeah, it was. Yes, I mean it's a blatant ripoff of James Bond, and I would say not ripoff, but homage.
Definitely an homage, and
You know, yeah,
it's going to set the tone for the rest of this film. How this kind of the tongue in cheek take that they're going to be doing with this movie for sure.
yeah,
But this is how and why from here on out in the rest of the series, Jason is now supernatural. He is undead, and
yep,
so now they have a much easier way of somewhat explaining how he keeps returning.
yeah. He is now full on zombie Jason,
Yep.
and with his super strength and all of that sort of stuff.
And the lack of running. You'll not see him run anymore. Power walk like a motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah. He got his. I mean, this is the time of malls and power walking, and
Right.
he learned how to do that. So so after the opening credits, Tommy heads to town, which has now been renamed Forest Green to get away from the stigma of Camp Crystal Lake and Camp Blood.
Yep.
Tommy fails to convince Sheriff Garris that Jason is back, and in fact is put in the local jail. Um, we go to a young couple headed out to Camp Forest Lake in a VW Bug, because Friday the 13th and VW Bugs go hand in hand.
That's true.
In the Volkswagen Bug is none other than Tony Goldwyn, who might have the shortest part in a horror movie by a person who would go on to later become a star ever. You might remember Tony Goldwyn from a lot of his roles, but for most notably for Ghost, which was one of his bigger roles.
Oh, okay.
Well, having said that, it doesn't take long before the couple is ghosted by Jason. I'll show myself to the door.
Yeah, you can go now. I'll take over from here.
Yeah, Tony Goldwyn had, he's done a lot of directing and producing and acting. So if you're not familiar with who he is, maybe look him up. But he's been in a lot of things.
Oh, right.
We find out that the couple were the camp leaders because, of course, they're reopening Camp Blood, but now it's Camp Forest Green.
Right.
Because Jason cares about the names a whole lot.
Yep, that'll fix everything. Change the name.
Yes. And shortly after we find that out, well, I guess we find that out because the rest of the counselors, one of them being Megan, show up to the police station to talk to the sheriff, asking him to investigate where those two are. He tells them that, they're probably just late, go on out to the camp and do their thing. Megan kind of falls for Tommy in the 30 seconds that she sees him.
As you do.
Yeah. And shortly after, the remaining counselors end up at the camp, and the kids show up, and it's a giant ass busload of kids because that's the best thing to do at Camp Blood.
Yeah.
So
naturally.
Yeah, so now you had brought up the paintballers. Jason soon starts picking off these paintballers, one of which it conveniently has Jason's signature machete and gets his arm ripped off so that Jason can have the machete.
Right.
That I do have a question on this before I go on.
Uh-huh.
There was one of them seemed to have escaped and we never see him again. Or did I miss him getting killed? The one that's kind of dorky one with glasses that shoots
He was
him.
the last one killed. Yeah,
Okay.
because like they were like right before we got the triple heads cut off at the same time by the machete. They had
Yeah.
mentioned him. They showed him briefly. I am unfortunately going completely blank, but no, he got him. He was like the last one. He had like
Okay.
the glasses on top of glasses. Yeah, he was like the really scary looking one.
Oh,
Yeah, he got him.
yeah.
He
And they
he
found
definitely.
his glasses at the scene of the
Yeah, he
when the
got him.
sheriff.
Just may not. They may not have exactly
Yeah.
showed how he got him, but he got all the paintball people.
Okay. Okay. So as the day turns to night, Jason starts doing his thing. Tommy, who has now been escorted out of town, but has chosen to come back to town because he's really got this thing for Jason, comes up with a plan to get rid of Jason forever and enlists the help of Megan. Eventually, Megan's dad catches up with Tommy, and Megan takes him back to the police station, puts Tommy back in jail one more time. About this time, they get a call that one of Megan's friends, Cord, along with another girl, were killed. Uh, Sheriff Garris believes that Tommy's responsible, and of course locks him up and heads on out to camp to tell the remaining counselors. Uh, Jason, in the meantime, has killed off the remaining counselors. And as he starts to make his way for the children, the sheriff and two other cops show up. Uh, he does in the two extra cops pretty quickly. Uh, as Tommy and Megan get there, Sheriff Garris, trying to protect Megan, uh, gets killed in a pretty remarkable way. Um,
Yeah, he does.
While Megan tries to protect the children, Tommy is invoking his plan to lure Jason into the water. He has tied a chain to a boulder and left like a noose at the other end. Goes out into the lake on this little outboard powered motorboat, and Jason follows him. He lights the lake on fire for some reason, and Jason attacks. He gets the chain around Jason. They both end up at the bottom of Camp Crystal Lake, conveniently right on the old sign of Camp Crystal Lake.
Right.
And Jason chokes out Tommy. Megan, thinking they are both dead, goes to try and save Tommy. Jason attacks her. She is able to start the outboard motor on the boat, which has the easiest pull start of any outboard motor ever, and uses the propeller to break Jason's neck, doing him in, apparently. She
Right.
gets Tommy to shore, performs CPR, and just as Tommy wakes up and announces it's all over, we go back to the bottom of the lake and Jason opens his eyes, roll credit.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, that's kind of a brief take.
Well,
You had talked early.
a fitting brief
Go
take
ahead.
to, I believe, is the shortest film in the franchise. This one was like, I think, not even an hour and a half long. So, yeah. Like,
Yeah, but it also didn't have the recap, so
true.
you know.
True. It didn't have the 10 minutes of filler in the beginning like a lot of them.
Now, one interesting thing about this, because you talked about the tone and
Yeah.
how it was set very early in this movie with the kind of James Bond opening.
Right.
In 1984, a rival horror franchise started, and that horror franchise was A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And this movie, I believe, takes a very tonal turn towards that series with the amount of humor they put in it, and actually has a direct nod to that series. Did you happen to catch that?
To Nightmare. I know what you're going to talk about. Go ahead and let them know because it's a common belief, but it's actually not true.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, at least according to the
So,
director. But
yeah, I don't know if I believe that. But so there's a girl in this that has a nightmare and is being chased all over in the nightmare by a killer. And that girl's name is none other than Nancy.
yeah. Now,
So,
according to the director, or because he
yeah.
wrote and directed this, he named the girl after his wife, who is named also Nancy.
Okay. I mean, maybe.
But man, that's a hell of a coincidence if so.
Yeah, and it may be that, hey, that is true, that his wife's named Nancy, and it
Right.
worked out that way where he can do both.
Right.
But the tone of this movie really tells me that they wanted to go for some of that humor that the Nightmare on Elm Street movies has.
Yeah, for sure. Which, in granted though, because this is what 85 when this was made, and Nightmare came out in 84.
Yeah, this
You
was
know,
actually 86.
it's 86. Okay, so now depending on because like in the first two Nightmare on Elm Street films, I mean Freddy has his the quips and stuff a little bit, but that really didn't get going until the later sequels. But still, to have a girl having a nightmare named Nancy, even with beyond all the humor in this film, that's still a pretty amazing coincidence. Although he's denying it, who knows the actual truth? It's very viable.
Yeah, I mean, only he knows, to
Yeah.
be honest. So
But it's a popular fan theory. I've heard it before. Just when I was doing some research on this film, I happened to see that that's the first time I read that about the director denying it. But again,
okay.
who knows? Maybe he just does like someone called him on his his nod to the rival franchise. He's like, no, 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 no way. you know,
Well, I will give you another nod
right?
to the rival franchise.
Oh, okay.
Alice Cooper does three songs in this movie,
Yes, he does.
which Alice Cooper they used his "School's Out for Summer" for A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So
Was that in the first one?
coincidental, or yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh,
yeah,
I'll even throw out another deeper connection too.
okay,
For a much later film, though, Alice Cooper plays Freddy's father in Freddy is Dead.
oh yeah.
Yeah, in the flashback showing his youth, Alice Cooper plays his alcoholic father.
Oh wow.
So he
Which
has,
they
yeah.
completely got rid of when we get to the Freddy movies, right?
Oh,
Because they changed that quite a bit.
well, like I said, Freddy's Dead got completely like I don't think they acknowledge that one at all, really. But it is technically canon. But yeah, and that's the only
Yeah.
time you ever saw Freddy Krueger's dad was that time, and yeah, it was played by Alice Cooper. So
Now you've got me guessing, because I really believe that the "School's Out for Summer" was in the first movie, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean,
Maybe
it's
they didn't.
it's totally possible. And again, yeah, that's another. This one had, yeah, like I said, not only one but three Alice Cooper songs, including
Yeah,
Teenage
one that I believe he. Yeah, I think he wrote "He's
for this.
Back," the man behind the mask,
Yeah,
for this movie, right?
yeah, absolutely. That song
Okay.
is completely about Jason, and you gotta
Yeah.
love the nod with the using Teenage Frankenstein with how Jason came back to life. That's
Yep.
clearly an intentional choice. On top of using some kick-ass Alice Cooper music, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this
I mean,
and to me, some of that, like those little nods like that, and we'll even say if Nancy was intentional, those nods like that, I'm okay with. Some of the other tongue-in-cheek humor and little things they do in this film is what kind of brings it down for me. I mean, like little things like the grave digger. No, he's complaining about them digging up the body. I'm not gonna get blamed for this. Then looks right at the camera. Some people got a strange idea of entertainment. it's like,
yeah.
oh, come on. The man,
Or when he calls himself a fart head.
a fart head, yeah.
Yeah.
And like the paintball guy who had the machete getting slammed up against a tree, leaving a bloody smiley face on it.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's because at this point, which is weird because it's like they're trying to instill the humor to make up for the fact that they actually upped the gore, actually seeing a lot of the violence in this movie compared to the previous ones. And this
Yeah.
and this film also has no nudity whatsoever in it. So it's kind of like it wants to hit like, hey, we can, this is definitely because we're getting towards that era where these movies that are aimed at adults start kind of getting a child following in a sense where like because a lot of these
Yes.
movies were going to like cable TV with cutting down on the violence and the cussing. So like I kind of wonder if that's why they went with this. I never really got a clear reasoning why they wanted to instill so much humor into this one. But and don't get it wrong, some of it worked. For me, it's
I'm going to go with the fact that Nightmare on Elm Street was hugely popular.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And this was the
absolutely.
sixth entry into a series, and why not change it up a little bit and try and use some of that same stuff from A Nightmare on Elm Street? Now, again, like you said, A Nightmare on Elm Street did not really start getting into the really, like, quote unquote funny parts, which is arguable
Right.
until like the third movie,
Yeah.
but it did have humor in the first two.
No,
Not at the
absolutely.
same
But
level,
like
but
Freddy, while granted it's dark and vicious humor at times, but like you didn't get into "Welcome to my world, bitch," like bitch being his
yeah,
catchphrase, for the rest of it. But still, yeah, you could maybe see like obviously Jason can't give one-liners, but even when he was alive, he didn't
right.
talk. So like yeah, so working in that way, and don't get me wrong, like I said, some of it worked because I still get a chuckle of when he uh, chunks the guy that had the machete, and he still had his arm, so he ripped his arm off, and he just kind of looks at it
Yes.
like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Or
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you brought up the one with the kids when we
Oh
were
yeah,
talking before the show. You want to talk about that one because it's pretty funny.
yeah. As he mentioned, there's a bus full of kids. Like this is one. This is this the only so far the only time we had camp. We actually had kids
Oh yeah,
in the camp.
yeah,
Which, well,
yeah,
although the producers were like, "Do not let he is not going to kill any kids," that we're not going that
yeah.
far. But there's a couple kids they cut to I think one time before the actual joke that lands where he's kind of like the smart ass kind of like looking at his friend like, oh, what's going to happen now? It's not really great. They're young kids, clearly not
Yeah.
casted for their acting abilities. Just hey, we need kids, and this kid can be a little
Right.
smart ass. But when all the hell's breaking loose and they're hiding the kids underneath the bed trying to hide from Jason, you go back to those two kids, and the one looks at the other one and goes, "So, what were you going to be when you grew up?" Like, you know what? That's
Oh,
actually funny.
well,
But
there was
yeah.
also when the sheriff told them to hide under the beds. It literally shows the kids diving
Oh, really? I didn't
under
even
the
notice.
yeah. Yeah, they instead of like laying down and rolling under, they
Yeah.
literally dive under the beds.
Well, you know what? When you're young and have a good back, you can just you can do those sort of
Yeah.
things for your survival. What I did want to bring up again, though, as I mentioned, a second person played Jason. Technically, he played it first.
Yeah.
He played it first. A man by the name of Dan Bradley. He was actually a member of the film crew.
Okay.
Who was just a guy larger in size, and they're like, hey, we can just instead of, and they tested him out, and they're like, hey, yeah, he could totally work, because he had a good size, and hey, why hire another guy when we already have someone willing to do the role? Because he was excited to do the role. Unfortunately, the man was, as the studio executives said, was too fat.
Really?
Like all the times I've watched this, I never noticed until I read that fact, and then I look back like, yeah, it's a little noticeable. Um, the fans have given him a horrible nickname, which if any of the fans who use his name for him are listening, fuck you. I don't like
Yeah.
that they call him bitch tits Jason.
Yeah.
But
Fuck them.
yeah, he's notably not because if you look at the paintball scene and look at him later, yeah, I mean you notice he has a bit of a gut and maybe not the firmest of pecs, but heaven forbid.
Yeah.
And the studio's like no, recast it, but they weren't going to reshoot the whole paintball sequence, so he still got his time on the screen. And as
Oh
fans
well, there you
go,
go.
a horrible nickname, which again y'all can kiss my ass. but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
The toxicity of the internet and fandom is a different story completely.
yeah, for sure. But overall, like this was one of my early Friday 13th I remember seeing because I still have a fond memory of when I was young, or a very detailed memory of the RV sequence after it sliding and him coming out the
Yes.
top. I have a memory of
Yes.
talking to my brother about that while we were like really young. So if this was my first, like I may not be clear, but this may have been the first, if not like second Friday 13th I ever saw. So I
Oh,
still
okay.
hold it in regard. Which, by the way, yeah, that was what was that Darcy DeMoss was the girl that was killed in the RV. Another
Yeah.
one of the actresses from the series we actually got to meet in person at our friend Larry's not just another Comic Con convention.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she swung by
Yeah.
my table and just said hi. Super nice lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean that has become one of my favorite conventions.
yeah,
Just because it's a horror convention.
right. And
You know, I wish I could say it better, but yeah, horror
a
convention,
horror convention.
and
Yeah,
it's local to us, and one of our good friends puts it on.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. If you are listening to
it's
this and you haven't been, he is. I think he does have it scheduled. I'll try to put some information on the link here in the description.
Yeah,
because
it's. I think it's scheduled for May this
yeah,
year, and of course that's going to depend on
yeah, of course. But
the
just in case,
virus and all that. So
yeah,
yeah,
just in case we can do it
um,
safely.
yeah, absolutely. One of the really cool things I liked in this movie was when they dig up Jason at the beginning.
Yeah,
He is decaying, right? He's been
right.
in underground for a while. I mean, they even have his tombstone is cracked and broken, which I'm not sure that that would really be the case in 5 years. But
I think they just gave him a
um,
shitty one and just etched his name in there.
yeah, use somebody else's and
Right,
etched his name in over it or something. But
right,
so yeah, so they dig him up and he's covered in maggots and decaying, right? You
right,
don't really get to even see him because there's so many maggots on him.
right.
When he comes back to life and he stands up, the maggots start falling off
Yeah.
and you actually see a pile of them on the ground. It's like he's so evil that the maggots don't even want anything to do with him.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I really kind of dug that part of it. As you said, the violence really took an upturn in this movie.
Right.
Uh,
Like
the
yeah.
gore, huh?
I said
Yeah,
some vicious kills are in this, which I think is what kind of like saves the film. Like if it had some of the earlier cuts they had done in the other movies where they cut
yeah,
away, this would definitely dropped a bit more in my rankings, which we'll get to later, of course.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there are some legitimately good kills with again characters that you don't hate, but you also don't care enough about. So like you can kind of just enjoy them. Like
yeah.
like Darcy and her boyfriend. They just to me they annoyed the shit out of me. So when Jason got to them, it was a good time.
That was the most annoying sex scene in a horror movie ever. I will give you that. It,
There's I don't
you
know if
know,
you may not catch it if you didn't know about it, but the director added a little what's I forget what it's called when you add something in post. I guess an audio cue, ASMR,
oh,
whatever
okay.
you want to call it. After they're done and she's getting up, he's talking. You actually hear he added in the snap of a condom because he wanted to make sure you knew they were having safe sex.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
apparently that was something he wanted to make sure was in there because this is the 80s. We're getting to the late 80s where I think
Yeah.
AIDS awareness is kind
AIDS.
of kicking in. So hey,
Yeah. AIDS
good
was
on him.
definitely a thing at this point.
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
good on him. But like I mean, again, if you weren't listening for it, you wouldn't have. I never noticed it again until it was pointed out when doing some research.
That is an interesting fact.
Right.
Um, and so you talked about the kids earlier. I kind of want to go back to that
Sure. Sure.
because he really doesn't ever threaten the kids.
No.
He walks in, the kids are asleep. Nancy, the one we talked about earlier, is awake. And while he kind of intimidates her,
Right.
he doesn't really threaten her. And you know, in a kind of typical Friday the 13th um, moral, because it has its own set of moral codes, right?
Right. Right.
And one of them is that the innocence, if you're innocent, you don't get killed, really.
Unless you're playing paintball.
And well, but we don't know that those people are innocent.
I feel like the last nerdy guy was innocent, but yeah,
Yeah,
but
maybe.
you're right. You're right. There is the director actually again going off the director. We don't know if these were made, statements made before or after.
Right.
His there is actually a reason for that, but it doesn't make sense
Okay.
due to continuity. He said that he had the rule that he was not going to have Jason hurt children because he drowned as a child, and he didn't drown as a child.
Well, this movie does have him drowning as a child, or the belief that he drowned as a child, because Tommy's whole plan is to the only way because he reads a book of the occult and comes up with the only way that he can kill Jason is to return him to his original resting place at the bottom of the lake.
Right. Which again, yeah, well, yeah, which ties into what the director said, but going off
Doesn't mean
the other
it's
movies,
right with
yeah,
the rest of the continuity.
exactly.
Yes.
So it's kind of what this movie, which this one with the lack of nudity and just maybe some edits for TV, you can imagine this one probably played on cable the most, which I think spread that
Yeah,
whole, like, if you don't watch the entire franchise, you kind of believe, yeah, Jason drawn as a child, now he's back as a killer. You kind of miss, like, you just kind of skim over the details because this movie literally paints it as that, and
yeah.
which we just know by the movies themselves is not true.
Well, and as far as Tommy knowing that, that's kind of the urban legend of the area, right?
True,
Is
true,
that's what
yeah,
happened. I mean, that's what the mom told Alice in the very beginning one.
right,
That we kind of know that that's not what happened, but that's the urban legend
yeah, and
for that area.
no, no, yeah, for sure, and I get that. The only problem with that is that Tommy knows better because Tommy killed Jason, so he knows he didn't drown as a child, and he knew he was
Yes,
alive. But again,
knew he was able to be killed.
yeah,
Yes,
arguing the details
continuity
of a
in
horror
horror
movie.
movies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's just that's my fanboy in me of just like
Oh no.
that's
Yeah.
not accurate, but
But that's
yeah,
that's the fun thing of these movies is to kind of pick those little things apart, right?
yep. And you want
You
to,
know, it's kind of fun to do that, to take these movies and go, hey, if they had just paid a little bit more attention to this, we wouldn't have this.
right. And I want y'all listening to remember though how Jason this final the climax of this film happened and what went down because it's going to be very important in a later movie installment where somebody is suddenly afraid of water and you can really see how fucking terrified he is while strangling a motherfucker underwater and going in through
He is
fire.
terrified of water.
He is so
He,
scared of this film, right? But
yes,
again,
yes,
that's
he was.
yeah, go ahead.
All of these movies are kind of written to tell the story they want to tell,
Yeah,
and they
for
kind
sure.
of loosely tie. And that's every horror franchise ever, right? Like we talked earlier about Freddy having a dad in the second movie,
Oh,
but not Mia. Or no, in Freddy's Dead,
Freddy's Dead,
he
which is
has a
like part eight
yes,
or seven. Yeah, they brought that
yeah.
in much later.
Even though it had already been established that he had uh, he was the son of 1,000
Oh,
serial killers or whatever
right, right,
it was. So they kind of change as they need to for these movies.
for sure, for sure.
you know, it, and let's be honest, people aren't really going to see these movies for the continuity,
It's true.
but it's still fun to kind of nitpick those things, in my
No,
opinion.
absolutely. Because again, uh, I don't think you're ever going to hear us give a low star rating for any of these films because of the story. At least
Oh
rarely.
yeah,
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 that's rarely
yeah.
an issue we'll have because I know, but like to me, who's as a fan who's watched these all so many times, I've you kind of have your own continuity in the head that okay, how can I connect this? This is something I don't know if every fan does it, but I think a lot of fans like okay, how do we make something we love make sense? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which
I mean, and that's fair.
you Halloween fans, man, I feel sorry for y'all trying to do that.
Man, I'm scared to redo the Halloween movies
Oh, I can't
because,
wait.
oh my gosh. Because you want to talk about a series that goes downhill quickly.
Oh
Whew.
yeah. Well, but we'll definitely be getting to that down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by my take, there were 18 kills in this movie.
Ooh.
So that's the same as the amount of kills, I think, in the previous movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I enjoyed the kills in this movie a whole lot more.
Yeah. This was definitely a yeah, like I said, they upped showing the violence and the gore for the kills to make up for the lack of nudity, and I guess they felt they counterbalanced it with the humor, and I guess the censors, the MPAA, whatever it is,
Yeah.
yeah, they let them get away with a bit more of the violence, and I guess because there wasn't as much nudity, nor a director trying to turn a sex scene into a porno scene, like it was in Part Five. Although,
Well, you're also getting to the point where you have more slasher films out there at this
right,
point, and it's kind of become a growing genre. And I feel like the ratings people have probably backed off by this point a little bit
right,
on what they'll allow in a rated R movie.
yeah. Uh,
just because it's become, you kind of become more um, adapted to it the more you see it, or the more it becomes a part of the Zeitgeist.
right.
Um, so yeah,
And I wonder actually because I was double checking my notes to make sure if I missed anything. I wonder if that's a factor in this other thing I found out about it. Like you said, slashers are getting more and more common. This is the sixth movie in the franchise. This was the first Friday the 13th not to be number one that weekend.
really,
Now I don't know what it opened up against, but like usually every time a Friday the 13th gets released, it's the number one film that weekend in the box office. So I don't know if people are getting tired of it or they like Jason's back. Well, we thought he died. We had the fake guy last time. Why do we care? But this was
right?
yeah, this was the first one not to hit number one.
Huh. I'll have to look and see what it was up against, and maybe we can readdress that next week on our
Right.
show.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Because that would be interesting to see what actually beat it.
Right.
So I thought the acting was a bit better. Well, it was actually a lot better than the last episode, or the last installment in this franchise. Especially bringing Tom Matthews in, who's a fairly decent actor in his own right. Miss Tommy. I thought David Keegan did really well as Sheriff Garris, or David Kagan, I'm sorry, as Sheriff Garris. Megan did okay. The lady that played Megan, Jennifer, what's her name? Jennifer Cook. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
right.
thought she did okay.
Yeah.
The supporting cast, it falls quickly from there. But
But we don't spend
again,
too much time with them, so I feel like I'm okay with
yes,
that. They didn't have to be great
yeah,
because they got picked off pretty quickly. So
yeah.
luckily,
You didn't.
yeah,
The counselors got killed. They didn't have much screen time at all before getting killed.
right. Which again, if you're not going to hire great actors, go ahead and just give us some interesting kills. Which, like I said, I made a few notes for my favorite kills. There's actually had four potentials, but I know which one I'm going with. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
yeah.
let's go there. What
Oh,
what
sure.
was your favorite kill?
Oh, the back break.
The back break. It was a
No,
good one,
he
man.
he bent he bent that sheriff just completely backwards. It was
That was
ridiculous, but man, the sound of the bone crunching and just like I don't know that one got me. I really like that one.
yeah. So mine was actually happened at the beginning. Alan getting his heart ripped out. And it's not just like he reaches in and pulls it out. He actually pushes it straight through Alan
Right.
and out his back. um, which to me it was like, okay, he's alive again. Yeah, they apparently did not bury him with his weapons as Tommy feared they did, and so he has to use just his raw strength to kill Alan. So
Yeah, that was a
there were
good
some
one.
good ones, though.
That was one of the ones I had listed down. But yeah, I think the back break just got me.
A couple other good ones. The cop getting his head squished was a good one,
Yeah, yeah.
especially when the sheriff finds him and he's got snot running down his face because his head was squished so far. Uh, any other ones for you?
It was between that one and I forget her character name, but the actress Darcy, getting her face pushed into the wall,
Yep,
and then out. You
yep,
see it come outside of the RV, or not
yeah.
breaking the
That was
wall, but just seeing her face outlined on the outside.
Yeah. I had that one as well. That was a good kill. Um, yeah. So overall, not the best entry into the series, but not the worst by far.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, what did you end up rating this one?
You know what? I mean, going back and just like again, like you always have your rating, but then when we talk, sometimes it can change or not. And I don't remember what I initially had down, but I'm gonna give it a solid 3 stars.
And I gave it 3 stars as well, which puts it right kind of in the middle of the pack
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
our
Like,
movie so far, which that's what I would say. It's a middle of the pack movie.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Anything else we missed?
I mean, again, like I said, there was a lot more like of the different humor moments and jokes they try to put in. Like I don't know, like one that it didn't. It kind of makes me groan, but then I don't know. Like when I say it out loud, it seems a little funnier. I was just thinking about that first couple we see that run into Jason. The lady's like, "I've seen enough horror movies to know we don't go talk to a guy in a mask." Oh, you know what? That's actually not bad. Like,
Yeah.
but then when she's trying to give Jason the money and he just drowns her. Uh, and then you see her, like the director said, he specifically had the sequence of the American Express card floating, so the audience would yell, "Don't leave home without it!" And like that's where you go
Oh
too
my
far. Like
god.
you had the good
Yeah.
humor, then you're trying to, like and like is that, and without knowing the director's intent, or you're watching on your own, like was that supposed to be some commentary on the rich? I don't fucking know, but apparently he just
I don't think those people were rich. They were
yeah.
driving a Volkswagen and camp
And
counselors.
she tried to buy off Jason with $40. So yeah,
Yeah.
but the express card apparently was just so people in the audience would yell out the tagline, and it's like, it's those moments like
It
don't go into this one looking for the more serious. This is definitely the campier side of
yeah.
which all horror is campy, but this is the one where you kind of like it's one of those you'd see a you can see a TV ad like with it all edited
Yeah.
down and just highlighting the wacky parts going Jason has never been wackier. Check out his wacky antics killing people Tuesday on Fox 16.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, you
it's
can definitely see a Ghostbusters type
right like
trailer for this if they wanted to.
yeah, for sure. And luckily, like to my memory, like it's all campiness because it's all like tongue in cheek, and we get, but nothing to this level we'll see in the rest of the series,
Yeah.
which I think is good. It does make it unique. It does. It's still enjoyable. It's still better than part three, which I think is still our lowest rated one. But
No, 5 is our lowest
did we rate
rated one.
five lower? Okay, yeah, you got
Yeah.
you got the statistics in front of
Actually,
you.
by quite a bit. Three's actually rated higher than this one, just to be
Did we?
fair with you. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just remembering the bad parts of three. I guess.
You raised your score on it at the end
Oh, okay.
because we had talked and I had convinced you it was better than you remembered.
I see. You use that mind trickery on me. I see what happened.
I did. I used Jedi mind powers on me.
You are a Jedi. We know that for sure. But yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
overall, just know what you're getting into with this one. There's going to be some like eye roll humor, but it's still overall an enjoyable Friday the 13th for sure.
Yeah, it's yeah, I can't say I minded at all. It could have. Again, we've harped on the humor a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit silly in some parts. In some parts, it worked. I actually chuckled at the scene with the red smiley face on the tree,
Did
not
you?
because it was a good kill, but it just kind of made me chuckle.
Right.
It's not funny necessarily, but to me, it's written like from a guy who thinks he's funny, but he's not funny.
Right. Right.
So it's got moments. It's got. Uh, I felt the suspense was pretty good in it, and that kind of balanced it out
Right.
between the humor. If you're going to do humor, you've got to put a lot of suspense in there, and I felt like they did that
Yeah.
well enough to
Yeah.
make up for it.
Yeah, the climax for sure definitely made up for a lot of that, just because it was a good, finale. The tension of, like as ready as Tommy was every time Jason went under the water, he still got surprised every time he popped back out. And like that old cat and mouse game in the water alone was good. It was well
Right.
done. And of course, this is one of the more important moments of the series: is Jason's officially undead and unkillable.
Yeah. Yeah.
He could only be stopped temporarily. So
Yep.
yeah. So
Yep.
yeah.
You can get away, but you can't ever get rid of.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to add, I think that wraps up this week's take on this.
Yep. That is our review, and I do believe it is my turn to give a horror recommendation.
I'm glad it's your turn because I completely forgot about the recommendations. So,
Well, that's all good. I'll be honest. I almost did myself. Like I definitely didn't have it written down. Uh, I'm going to go in a different horror direction than what we've recommended. If y'all know, I have another podcast with our buddy Jerry, and we talk a lot about anime. So I wanted to give you an anime horror movie to go check out if you haven't seen it.
okay.
It's called Vampire Hunter D. This was
Okay.
one of my first anime movies I ever saw. It's like from the mid '80s, but it's a just a beautiful anime to watch. Just about the title says it. It's a vampire hunter named D helping out a village. You got beautiful character designs from the artist Yoshitaka Amano, who is known for his Final Fantasy work. So that also that connection with my love of things. But yeah,
Nice.
it's just a good violent '80s horror vampire horror story done in anime. It's a classic. If you can go out and if you can find it, go check that one out for sure.
Very good. I will take a look at it.
Yep. But that's going to do it
So,
for today. If y'all liked what you heard, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel if you are not. And share it around. We appreciate all y'all that have been. And yeah, if you've watched this movie, let us know what you think. Or if you checked it out after listening to our thoughts, tell us how wrong we are or how right we are. Whatever you think, we love to hear it back from y'all. And if y'all are enjoying any of our recommendations or, just what you think of how the show's going, just, yeah, hit us up in the comments. But
yeah, we'll
yeah,
we'll see you guys next week
yeah.
with another episode.
All right, we'll catch y'all later.